The Forgotten Warriors: Why History Does Not Remember the Soldiers. History is a complex, intricate tapestry woven from the actions, decisions, and thoughts of countless individuals. Yet, it is often said that history does not remember the soldiers. This sentiment is not just a statement of fact, but a profound reflection on the way we, as a society, choose to memorialize the past. Soldiers, those who fight in wars, whose lives are marked by sacrifice and valor, are often left behind in the pages of history, their names forgotten, their struggles overlooked. It is not the soldiers themselves, but the wars they fought, the generals who led them, and the kings and empires that rose and fell that take center stage. The theory of historical memory and its selective nature reveals an uncomfortable truth. We remember the outcomes, the ideologies, and the heroes, but we often forget the individuals who fought for those very causes. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once remarked, "History is the version of past events that people have decided to agree upon." His words resonate deeply when we consider the nature of historical remembrance. We glorify the leaders and victors, the ones who shaped the course of events. But the soldiers, the pawns in this grand game of power and conflict, are often relegated to the background. Their personal stories are rarely told, their sacrifices often overshadowed by the greater narrative. This selective remembrance of history raises an important question. Why do we forget the soldiers? One possible explanation lies in the nature of historical writing itself. Historians, as stewards of memory, often focus on the larger political, social, and economic forces that shape history. Wars are not remembered for the courage of individual soldiers, but for the strategies, ideologies, and outcomes that defined them. The soldiers, who are seen as instruments of these grand forces, are reduced to mere footnotes. The war may be remembered, the battle may be immortalized, but the individuals who fought in them are forgotten. It is the same pattern across different epochs. The soldiers are forgotten, and only the great events and the names of their commanders remain etched in our collective memory. Another reason for this erasure can be found in the very nature of war itself. War, by its brutal and dehumanizing essence, turns individuals into numbers. Soldiers become part of a collective force, their identities swallowed by the machinery of war. Their personal experiences, their fears, their struggles, and their pain often fade into the background, overshadowed by the grandeur of the battle itself. The narrative of war is not the story of individuals, but of nations, ideologies, and victories. The soldier, in this context, is a nameless, faceless entity, a tool of war, rather than a human being with hopes, dreams, and aspirations. It is easier to remember the symbols of war, the flags, the leaders, the triumphs, than to remember the men and women who bore the brunt of its cost. Furthermore, the notion of collective memory and its inherent selectivity plays a significant role in the way soldiers are remembered or forgotten. As societies, we choose which stories to tell and which to silence. The heroes, the conquerors, the ones who shape history are often celebrated, while the ones who suffer in the shadows are overlooked. This selective memory can be seen in the way we honor those who have fought in wars. Statues and monuments are often erected in memory of generals, politicians, and leaders, while the individual soldiers are left without recognition. The collective memory of a nation tends to elevate the ideals and the symbols that represent it, but the soldiers, the very ones who defend these ideals, are often relegated to the background. The philosopher Michel Foucault argued that power and knowledge are intertwined. He suggested that those who control knowledge control the narrative of history. In the case of war, it is the powerful, those who wage the wars, those who lead the nations, those who make the decisions, that control the narrative. The soldier, as an individual, is a small part of this larger machine, and as such, their story is often erased from the collective memory. Foucault's theory suggests that the erasure of soldiers from history is not accidental, but is instead a product of the structures of power that shape how we remember the past. Yet, there is a deeper philosophical implication to the idea that history does not remember the soldiers. It raises questions about the value of individual lives in the grand sweep of history. Are we merely cogs in a machine? Are personal stories insignificant in the face of larger historical forces? Or do we have agency, the ability to shape our own destinies, even in the midst of war and conflict? The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that human beings are condemned to be free, meaning that we are always responsible for our actions, regardless of the circumstances. In the context of war, this raises the question, do soldiers have agency in the face of the historical forces that drive them to fight? Or are they merely victims of the larger narrative, their personal stories erased in favor of the collective? In the end, the phrase, "history does not remember the soldiers," serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of historical memory. It calls attention to the erasure of the individual in the face of the collective, the marginalization of the human experience in favor of larger political, social, and ideological narratives. It asks us to consider the value of individual lives in the grand sweep of history and to question why some stories are told while others are forgotten. But perhaps the most important question this phrase raises is one of responsibility. If history does not remember the soldiers, then who will? Who will remember the sacrifices of the individuals who fought and died in wars? If we, as a society, continue to focus on the grand narratives and forget the individual experiences, what does that say about our collective values? Are we willing to recognize the humanity of those who fight, or will we continue to erase their stories from history? And in doing so, what does it mean for our understanding of history itself? As we reflect on these questions, we are reminded that history is not just a collection of events, but a reflection of the values we hold dear. If we are to remember the soldiers, we must first acknowledge their humanity, their struggles, and their sacrifices. Only then can we truly understand the cost of war and the price of peace. If you're not subscribing to the Usafi channel, you're probably never going to see us again. But if you are, then congratulations, you're learning something new every day.